Now she has some information in reference to how all of these conspiracies came about. And during the first segment, she gave us quite a bit of information. And so, Lana, during this second segment, let's see if we can continue our discussion in reference to conspiracies.
And actually, before I start, I want to have a quick saying to our viewers that these are not my personal views that I'm disclosing today. This stuff is stuff that I found on the internet, that I found on blogs. This is not my personal subject. I'm not saying that that Neil Armstrong never touched the moon. I'm not saying that so-and-so did this or so-and-so. This is stuff that I've personally seen.
Just for our information.
Just for your information. This is not my personal views. Now, I want to go into famous conspiracy theories in pop culture, like artists and music. Now, I think another famous conspiracy theory that a lot of people don't know about is the Tupac conspiracy theory. Now, as you know, Tupac was a very famous rapper at the time of his death. He was murdered. And so, basically, after he was murdered, albums kept being released under his name and songs kept being released after his death. And a lot of people don't believe that he pre-recorded those many songs, and a lot of people still do think that he's in Albuquerque, New Mexico, still recording songs to release in future albums and making money off of it, because he wanted to use this murder as a publicity stunt so that he would make more money, because people would be grieving his death and they would buy more albums and get their friends to buy more albums, and he would release more songs, making more albums.
That's a conspiracy in reference to, you believe that a large number of folks believe that.
Yes, and another one is that Shakespeare wasn't Shakespeare. Now, yeah, I know this makes no sense at all. Well, a lot of people believe that the man who wrote all these books like Romeo and Juliet wasn't who we think to be Shakespeare of Stratford. They think it was William Stanley or Francis Bacon, because due to a lot of missing stuff about, biographical information about him, like birth date or burial date, a lot of people don't really believe he existed, and they think that Shakespeare was a pseudonym that many authors used, like Carolyn Keene, who wrote Nancy Drew. It was actually a group of people who used Carolyn Keene as a name to keep their identity sacred. Now, another one is Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was a famous serial killer back in, I guess, like a really long time ago. And so Jack the Ripper would slay girls. He would slit their throats. He would find prostitutes on the street and just murder them and leave their body parts scoured up and down the streets. And so a lot of people think that Vincent van Gogh was, quote-unquote, Jack the Ripper. And they think this because a lot of Van Gogh's work represents the outline of some of Jack the Ripper's body parts that he skewered across the streets. Like, for instance, a leg that he severed off of a woman, well, Jack the Ripper severed off a woman, was featured in one of Van Gogh's paintings. Like, the outline of the leg was featured in the background of the painting. So a lot of people think that this is really weird. And there are also books on it. It's the same thing with Tupac. And even Elvis Presley, the same thing as Tupac. After he died, he kept releasing songs, and people don't think he pre-recorded these songs. They think he's still alive to this day. Now, another one in the music industry is Kurt Cobain. If you're not familiar with Kurt Cobain, he was the lead singer of the band Nirvana. He shot himself in the head and killed himself. Now, a lot of people think that his then girlfriend, Courtney Love, murdered him so that she could inherit his money and take over all the rights to all Nirvana songs and famous albums like Nevermind or In Utero. And so they think that she murdered him so that she can claim all his money, because he was very rich at the time and he was famous, and he still is to this day. And so a lot of people think that he was murdered by his girlfriend and that the FBI and the CIA covered it up.
Go on.
And then now I want to talk about even more famous ones. Like in the previous segment, if you're just tuning in, I talked about the man on the moon and how there were a lot of evidence saying that he didn't really land on the moon. Like there were no stars in the sky in the pictures that were taken of Neil Armstrong on the moon. The American flag was waving, and there's no gravity on the moon. He crashed a mini spaceship that he was trying to fly, but then he flew one six times harder to drive into space and landed on the moon gracefully. But then he crashed one and made it explode just days before. And so those are some of the ones that in pop culture. And now there are other ones like Pan Am Flight 103. If you're not familiar with that, on December 21st, 1988, Flight 103 exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing everyone on board and 11 residents of the town. Although Libya has recently claimed responsibility for the attack, of all the items on this list, Flight 103 has probably been responsible for spawning the greatest number of conspiracy theories. Some people say that the CIA started. Some people say that Libya started. Some people say that, you know, it was hijacked by terrorists. And so nobody really knows what really happened because everybody on there was killed. But then, so a lot of people say that, hey, it was the FBI, or hey, it was the CIA, or hey, maybe it was America. Maybe people on that flight knew a little too much about the FBI and that they wanted to keep them quiet. And that leads me on to my next subject, the Twin Towers conspiracy. I read a conspiracy theory about 9/11, September 11, 2001, which said that that the Twin Towers are blown up because certain people inside the Twin Towers were investigating old files and old cases involving the FBI and the CIA and the President of the United States. And so they were investigating that, and they had gotten a quote unquote a little too close to the truth about what the FBI is doing to people, about brainwashing techniques that they've been studying and that they've been practicing on poor people. And so when the people in the Twin Towers buildings were about to disclose this information, boom, two planes flew into those buildings. And so a lot of people think that those planes didn't just fly into those. They think that it was set up by the FBI and terrorists was just thrown all over it because they didn't want the FBI to be in trouble for this. And also another one, I think a really famous one that I know of is the one JFK's assassination. And so that talks about how Lee Harvey Oswald could have had two accomplices, or how his brain was removed during the autopsy and kept as a souvenir, or that he never really died. And so those are a few conspiracies. And so basically, I will get more into the JFK one in our next segment.
Very good. And of course, Alana, let me simply say that it's astounding to me in terms of having understood that you were going to talk about these various conspiracies and to somehow believe that somehow you could carry this through. And I think that you're doing an excellent job in terms of carrying it through, because I really don't have anything to say in reference to it.
Conspiracy theories are more popular than you would believe, really.
Well, I think that you're demonstrating that. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.